Why do you see agricultural field research as a market?
As a market. Yeah, I quite often talk about robotics as a market for us because that's the easiest thing to relate to. A lot of people can imagine a robot in a field with a camera. Agricultural field research. Okay. For many years now, many years, we've gone into a crop and divided that crop into plots, small plots, about 2 meters wide, about 12 meters long, because that fitted in with the tractor systems of the time. And we refer to these as small plot trials. And on each plot, we put a different treatment. It may be a different herbicide rate. It may be a different fertilizer regime. We may actually plant these plots, drill the plots, and there may be different varieties of crop, for example. So all this is field research, which is ultimately the way of evaluating new chemicals or new varieties or new fertilizers into agriculture. And they're complex because we have a set of these plots alongside each other, and then we replicate that set of plots a number of times, up to 6 times generally, 4, 5, 6 times. And we then randomize each treatment within each replicate. So the full name is randomized replicated small plot trials. So you have this grid of plots, imagine, and the assessments that we have to do to see what's working and what's not, they're normally carried out by skilled humans. And agronomists who can recognize the symptoms or the weed control and the different weed species and levels of disease, and be able to assess these visually at different levels. So it's 15% leaf cover, for example, at a certain leaf layer in the crop. So for each plot, you're visually looking at probably, 50 points in the plot to choose a number, as well as taking in peripheral vision information. So in all, and also there's say 50 plots for each species. So if you multiply all the replicates and the number of times you're looking in a plot and the number of plots together, it's probably 15,000 points that you're looking at in a trial in order to make an assessment, for example, of weed control. That's a lot, and that requires tremendous skill, practice, and concentration. And the worst thing is, if you used to be assessing a trial, you'd be halfway through, farmer would come up wanting to have a chat, see how things were going, and you'd lose your eye, as it were, and you'd pretty much have to start again. So it's very subjective as well. We would get together as different agronomists at the beginning of a season, and at that stage we would have very different views as to what 20% of a mildew on a wheat leaf looked like, for example. But when you actually practice together, you home in and get a reasonably accurate figure. But it costs a lot of time for those people to develop those skills. And that's becoming increasingly problematic to get people to do that. It's subjective. It's still subjective. And I think a camera on a stick, as it were, looking into that crop, moving along a plot, slowly along a plot, and using a robust AI solution trained on our synthetic data can make a much more objective, quantitative assessment rather than a human making a subjective assessment. That's a paradigm shift in the way we do research. We can use cameras at the moment looking for biomass, but not for doing routine assessments of different species and things like that. We're nowhere near that. So we can open that door, and that can change research across the world. Quite simply, that can change the way we do research. When you have these replicated and randomized plots, the reason you're doing that is so that you, of all the variance you get in the data, you can properly allocate that variance either to the treatment or to the field, a variation in the field. And that analysis of variance is very important to be able to statistically say this treatment is better than that treatment. To do that more accurately and more objectively in a quantified way with a robust AI solution trained on synthetic data, big deal, big deal. We can change research and save huge costs, save the amount of work we need to do because the quality of data is better. So yeah, that's a big market out there. It won't happen overnight, but a huge market.